We're fine with that.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 o'clock. This is our monthly Floral City Library Heritage Hour.
The Floral City Heritage Council presents Welcome to Heritage Hour. Curator and master storyteller Tom Ritchie welcomes us inside the Floral City Heritage Museum for a presentation that's every bit as entertaining as it is enlightening. Part 1, From Fire Station to Museum. Part 2, Everything Works. Part 3, Spanish Moss Phosphate and the Two-Man Chainsaw. Part 4, Neat Old Gadgets. Part 5, The Canal, the Rails, and the Wreck. Part 6, Donkey Ball and the Arsenic Bottles. Part 7, What Are These Things Worth? Part 8, Only Bigger.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 o'clock. This is our monthly Floral City Library Heritage Hour. Yeah. Enjoy the music. I'll put it on mute.
It's broken.
So we're going to talk about the Floral City Heritage Museum. And it's just 2 doors down. And it's one of the main things in Floral City. In fact, I always laugh when people come into the museum. We always say, we always ask them, where are you from? Have you been here before? And often they'll say, no, first time. And I think, wow, where are y'all from? And so they'll say, Floral City. We lived here for 12 years. We moved up from there. So, okay, you've lived here for 12 years and you've never been to the museum? There's not a lot to do in Floral City. In fact, the one thing to do is go to the museum. Well, you have to laugh. So this is entitled Secrets of the Floral City Heritage Museum. You know the TV show Secrets of the Museum?
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe there aren't a lot of secrets, but there are a lot of good stories. And some of the secrets, I'd rather just keep them secret than not. So here's our building. Like I say, two buildings down. And it's an odd building. You think, look at those big garage doors. They must have automobiles and things in there. Well, no. The reason it looks the way it does is that's the old fire station. That's the Floral City Volunteer Fire Station. It was built in 1965 by Bob Metz's brother, James Metz, who was a contractor. And then in 1980, they added on to the front of it. You can see the concrete blocks are getting ready to do that so that it now looks the way it looks as of that time period. However, in the year 2000, do we need more chairs?
Hey, Bill.
Do we need more chairs?
I'll sit over here, thank you.
Okay. In the year 2000, we built a new fire station. Bigger. It's about a mile down the road south of here. You've all seen it. And it's a big metal building, so they can put the big trucks in it, and it's much better for them, better parking and everything. And so, as of 2000, this building sat empty. It's county owned. And in 2004, we asked if we could use it for one of our Heritage Days celebration. And so we spent weeks, literally maybe 3 weeks, patching holes, painting the interior, putting in new office carpeting in parts of the building, and converting it so that we could use it for 2 days during a weekend for our Heritage Day. So then we took it all down, and then the next year, 2005, the county let us use it again. And we did the same thing, weeks preparing, setting things up, a 2-day weekend, took everything down, and then we did that 4 years in a row, and then we said, the heck, can we just have it? And the county said yes, to let us have a museum. And as of 2009, it's been the Floral City Heritage Museum and Country Store. So we don't own it, we rent it. $1 a year for 5-year contracts. If they ever say they want the building back, I don't know what we're going to do with all this stuff in there. My garage is not big enough.
I remember the library was in there for about a year.
Yeah, when the library was rebuilt, we put all the books in the building. So, what about museums? I mean, as a kid, I loved museums. I remember going to the Flagler Museum in Palm Beach, going to the Pirate Museum in Nassau. My father took me there, and oh my God, that changed my life. That was so exciting. I'm pretty hokey now, but you know. And I love museums. I worked at the University of Florida History Museum, Natural History Museum in Gainesville. I worked in the Science Museum Planetarium in West Palm Beach when I lived there. I've done research at the Smithsonian Museum, Natural History, and then I worked in the British Museum, Natural History in London. I lived there for a while I was doing research on a book and everything. So I've got museum in my blood. I have a museum at home. Yes. Some of you have seen it. And that's stuff from all over the world because I've done a lot of world travel for my job. But then I became director of the Floral City Heritage Museum, and that was a dream come true. It just sort of fell into my lap, and I thought, hey, yeah, I'm ready for this. So the importance of museums. This is a Smithsonian Natural History Museum. It's a lot like the Floral City Heritage Museum, only bigger. They have more room than we have. So why do we need museums? The functions of museums are collection, exhibition, conservation, research, and education. Museums collect artifacts and documents to display and to be up for research for those who want it. However, this is more important to me. Museums bring communities together on both a social and political level and a local one. Local museums can provide a sense of community and place for celebrating a collective heritage, offering a great way to learn about the history of a particular area. If you're interested in the history of Floral City, we have written and produced several books on the history of our wonderful town. Bob has written a couple of books as well, but come to the museum and that's the place to learn all about the historic aspects of Floral City. Museums are broadly categorized into 5 main types based on the nature of their collections and focus areas: art, history, science and technology, natural history, and general museums. So those are different types of museums. However, the Floral City Heritage Museum combines all of that. And this is something that blew me away. I had to put it in. And very importantly, visiting museums has been found to reduce anxiety in both children and adults. I'm not making this up. It was reported in 2024 that studies have shown that cortisol levels, which is a hormone that's produced in stressful conditions that helps us deal with stress, the cortisol levels decrease after a single museum visit, and regular visits can lead to even better cortisol responses. How about that? I mean, we don't have many people meditating in the museum, but it's just the same. You know, sometimes people come in and they're just killing time, I guess, and come in and they look around. They don't really read much, and they kind of ignore us when we're talking to them. And I say, fine, whatever. But then there are those who read everything we've written and every label. I mean, that just makes my heart feel so good because that's the way I am. In fact, John the other day was over there and he had his earphones on and he was reading every single thing. And he learned so much about Floral City and everything just from that one experience. How do we amass our collections at the Floral City Heritage Museum? Well, a few of the artifacts are on loan from other institutions, particularly the Citrus County Historical Society. And they have their own museum, the county museum, but they have stuff in the basement and they don't show everything and they can't use everything. And every now and then we'll have a need for something that they'll loan to us, like a semi-permanent loan. And if they need it back for something, we give it back, but otherwise it stays here. Another fantastic item I'll talk about later is a scale model of one of the paddle wheel boats that operated in these waters. The Crystal River Boat Builders Association made this, and then they learned about our display of the canal and the boats, and they thought this is the perfect place to store it so it's on exhibit and everybody can see it. So as time goes by, and we've been amassing things, you know, a lot of the things are random. We put it out, and how cool is this? And people will look at us, oh, my grandmother had one of those, or when I was a kid, I had to walk, you know, and it's great fun. But when we get 2 or 3 items that are related, oh, we've got a display category, and we start putting them together and telling a story, and it just keeps growing almost every week. Someone will come into the museum, and first of all, they're blown away by how much is in there and what they see. And then invariably someone will say, you know, I have this thing in my garage that you might want. Would you be interested in that? And the last time I refused a donation was never. Sometimes I think about it 2 nanoseconds, and sometimes I don't even think about it. Yes, we'd love to have it. And so look at these categories we've now, I was thinking about it, and yeah, these are categories we have of collections of displays, and there are more that I probably didn't think of.
Can't touch this.
So most museums around the world, you've been to them,
Touch this.
and you see signs, do not touch, stay back, you know, all of this. That's most museums around the world. The Floral City Heritage Museum, we encourage interaction. We call it a hands-on museum, unless there's a couple of things that are behind glass that, you know, we don't want people messing with. But I remember having a school group from Floral City Primary had come over, and we've had school groups numerous times, and I was explaining some stuff, and one of the kids reached over, and the teacher said, "Oh, don't touch." And I said, "No. We want them to touch things and see how they operate and see how they work and learn what they're all about and how ingenious we were before we had electricity and molded plastic and those sort of things." And these are things from the 1800s, even middle 1800s, some of them, that still work. Everything in the museum except for one item works. The one item is in the back room. It's a calculator, you know, an old type thing that I got from Crystal River that was in a flood. And I thought, oh, I'll take it apart, I'll get it working. And no, it was just all rusted and coming. So there's one, that's one of the secrets. When you look at the items, there's one object that doesn't work. And it's that adding machine in the office in the back.
What about the kids with the fruit grinders?
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that when I show pictures. But Bob pointed out something. You know, sometimes kids are in there and they're just like, oh, they go, and they just play with everything. And they'll say, what does this do? And I'll say, well, read the label. Right there. And they're, oh, what does this do? And they're, read the label. You know, these aren't just toys. They're, you know, you're supposed to learn from them. And you see kids, oh, this meat grinder, reach it, what is it? Like, why would you do that? So I've had to take pieces of hardware cloth and jam in there so kids can't, don't put your fingers in there when your friend is turning the crank. What the heck? I mean, why do you have to tell? Anyway, when you walk in the door, we greet you and ask to sign the register because we like to know where people come from, how they found out about us. But when you walk in the door, the first thing we have, because it's so important to us, is the prehistory of Floral City or the Floral City area. And that's because Native Americans have lived here and loved it and appreciated the beauty and the plenty for thousands of years. We have physical evidence of people here in Floral City, in the Floral City area, from at least 14,000 years ago, continuous up to the modern day. Can you imagine that? I mean, think of people in the Stone Age making stone tools, and we have stone tools. That's how we can prove they were here. Living here, making pottery, even, and, you know, from time immemorial. And then they were, that culture, those cultures are pretty much extirpated when the Spanish conquistadors came through and introduced diseases and warfare and stole their food and everything. And then after they had been gone for quite some time, over 100 years, Seminoles moved into the area. These were Creek Indians. They came to be known as Seminoles and Miccosukes. They're related. And they settled right here in Floral City. In fact, the main village in the area was at the Baptist Church property, which is adjacent to the Duval Metz House, which is 100 yards away from the museum. And they lived here from the late 1700s until the 1830s, when the U.S. soldiers came in and burned the village and stole their cattle and their food supply and drove them out. But the Seminoles were a very important part, so we want to chronicle them and pay tribute to them. This is a 17.5-foot long dugout canoe that John Eden found in the Withlacoochee River back in the 1950s when the river level was low, like now. And the side, well, I don't want to talk too much about things, but that's the base of it. The sides rotted away, but the muck protected the rest of it. How cool is it that we have that? And they had it in their garage for 50 years, and then decided, well, why don't we let the museum have it? And they can just show it to everybody rather than just have boxes, set on it. And other things in there in the museum. Like one of our prized objects is this fire-hardened pottery pot. It's Seminole. When Brent Weissman, the state archaeologist, was visiting our museum, he looked at that and said, oh my gosh, we thought it was a Timucuan pot, of which there are plenty of examples, locally. And he said, no, that's Seminole. And the reason this is so significant is when the Seminoles and Creeks moved into Florida, they'd already been trading with Europeans, with Americans for generations. They had iron pots and cooking utensils and guns and steel knives and ammunition and European trade goods. And when the war started, they lost access to all that and they reverted to making pottery again. So this is one of the rare complete pots, Seminole pots. And look at that woven pine needle basket next to it. That's from I've had it since the 1980s. I'm not sure when it was made, but certainly in the 1900s, late 1900s. And other things from the Seminole War. Maurice Johnson found that bayonet. He cut his foot on it near the Duval boat ramp when he was a kid. And we've identified it, and it is from the time period of the Seminole War, 1835 to 1842. And that first year of the war took place, all the major battles within a 20-mile radius of here. There's a lock plate on the left that one of our members found near the Baptist Church parking lot just outside of the Dade Battlefield State Park. And it's from the Seminole War. Somebody else found that big cannonball in a field just outside of Floral City. I found the little canister ball, hard to see,
Oh, yeah.
right there. I found that when a piece of land had been excavated, had been bulldozed. They were building a dentist's office over in Lecanto, and I was walking around and said, oh my gosh, look at this. And it was grape shot from that same time period. They would put a whole bunch of them in a canister and fire it from a cannon, and it would be like a shotgun and do terrible damage, of course. So this map we have on this, all of this stuff is in the museum that I'm showing you. This is a map of the seat of war of the Second Seminole Indian War, the biggest, costliest, most expensive, most people lost lives of any of the American Indian wars that U.S. was involved with. And you can see all 6 major battles in that first year took place all around Floral City. Floral City wasn't here yet, but this was the site. Artifacts that a friend found, metal detecting from Fort Armstrong. And we have panels on the wall that you can take your time and read. This is chronicling the different culture periods of Native Americans before, well, including the Seminoles, but going back to Paleo-Indian times, like at least 14,000, maybe 18,000 years. We don't know how long people have been in Florida. But look at these. These are all, except for the arrow, that's from Texas. All those other points are from Citrus County, and mostly were found near Floral City. stone tools, and you know they use shells for tools as well because we're so close to the Gulf, and bone points and all kinds of things. So I was a vertebrate paleontologist. Vertebrate paleontology is what I did my graduate research in at the University of Florida. And this is the Museum of Natural History in New York City. Paulette and I were just there a short time ago, and we got a chance to visit it. It's a lot like Floral City Heritage Museum, only bigger. I say that because we have a fossil collection, that's it. But you laugh, but when you look at it, people are amazed. Oh my gosh, there's elephantine material there. Gomphothere tooth, mastodon, mammoth. They were walking around here. There's a mold of a saber cat tooth, a saber-toothed tiger, right here from Citrus County. Tapir teeth, jaguar teeth, deer teeth, but also giant armadillos, gopher tortoises that were 4 feet high in the shell. You know, they weren't gopher tortoises, but and camels, and horses that had 3 toes on each foot, and horses that had 1 toe, like modern horses, but they all went extinct in the Pleistocene. I mean, it's amazing what was here. This was like Africa, you know, like the plains of Africa. I remember reading how Teddy Roosevelt was a big game hunter, and he was familiar with the fossils of North America, the Pleistocene fossils and everything. And he wrote in his diary when he was in Africa, and he did his first day of hunting. I think they got a Cape buffalo and a lion, and you know, they're shooting big game. And he wrote in his diary, "I have just spent a day in the Pleistocene," because the Pleistocene megafauna still exists in Africa and southern Asia. And it was here. We had rhinoceroses here in Florida. So who visits the Heritage Museum? A lot of people are just driving by and they see the flags. We put up a couple of flags and some signs that stick out by the road, you know, museum open. And sometimes they read about us on the internet. And we've had people come in from Greenland, from Iceland, from southern Argentina, from New Zealand, from Australia. Now, they don't come to America just because of the museum, but they happen to come by. And we're very family-oriented. You can see all the kids. In fact, Angie was the one that said, oh, there's a photo, you know, and I walked in and the kids were all playing at this one table, so I took a picture of it and all that. And one of the things, however, that really draws people in is Bob Metz and his restored 1935 Ford, I want to say coupe, but you have a different word for it, coupe. And he parks it right there. He has his own marked parking place, and people come by and stop, and they, you know, want to look at the car. And 2 weekends ago, a guy was riding his bike and saw the car, and he pulled in and he said, "Who owns that car?" And Bob says, "I do." And the guy stood there and talked to Bob for 45 minutes, and then he walked out, got on his bike, and left. He didn't even look at the museum. But that brings people in. He's got a mate to this, the red convertible 1935 Ford Day something. That's the Duval Metz house behind him, where Bob grew up. So we have some really important industries that occur here in the Floral City area, and it's fun to chronicle those because that's good subject matter for displays. You know, a lot of agriculture. And I didn't even put peanuts. That was another major one. Cotton. Did you know we used to grow cotton and sugar cane? Tobacco. Florida was the second biggest producer of tobacco up until the 1930s. And then first was Virginia, then Florida, and then North Carolina. And Florida just opted for citrus and gave up a lot on sugar cane and tobacco. Thank goodness. I mean, tobacco, what a nasty industry, right? No offense. Mining, I like to say, what made Citrus County famous? Phosphate. Oh, God, you guys are all over it. Livestock, we were the second biggest producer of cattle up until relatively recent. Texas was number one, and much of our cattle land is now, well, a lot of it was turned into citrus groves, but then housing developments and gated communities and golf courses and, whatever. We're still big in cattle. I mean, just drive around this area, Citrus County, and we're, I think, number 9 in the country now or something like that. Turpentine was big, and we have a lot of items on display that we can talk to people and explain what they're all about. We even have the remains of a burned out pine tree that has the scars on it, the cat marks from the turpentine collecting stuff. So come in and learn all about it. Citrus, of course, was very important. A lot of items on display, including that cool bench, which is open.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, it's a grapefruit squeezer. Cut a grapefruit in half, put the lid down, sit on it. Sit on it. I can squeeze a 5-gallon bucket of grapefruit in a few minutes with this thing. I mean, it's ingenious. Now, one of our favorite items in there is this monster chainsaw. It's a 2-man chainsaw. It's a Craftsman chainsaw, and it was made in the early 1930s. And we found it in our Bob's family found it in the attic or back room or something of the Duval house, and they bought it and moved in. So one guy has to hold the handle, while the other guy holds this 40-pound massive thing, and there's fuel in it, it's even heavier. The throttle is in one of those, the gripper, and they only made this for 3 years. I wonder why. How many? I guess you had to pick straws, but you get to hold the end of it this time. But 3 years they made this thing. Not so successful. Well, I guess if you're the one operating it, especially. But yeah, tobacco industry. I already mentioned that. Oh, these are things people have brought in, including the Doc Ferris ashtray. Wouldn't you? I mean, that's got to be a real collector's item. I've never seen another one. That was given to us by actually the lady that works at the packing store. We have a Spanish moss gin. Did you know Spanish moss was an industry? They used to collect the Spanish moss, pull it out of the trees, put it in big piles, wet it down, let it rot, and the green living tissue would rot and slough off, and then what is left is vegetable hair or horse hair. And when cushions are packed with horse hair, it didn't come from a horse, it came from Spanish moss. And this is a huge industry. And it was used as packing material, but it was also used for stuffing throw pillows, mattresses, and it could be woven like thread fibers, like wool fibers, and for saddle blankets for horses and such things. Amazing. Phosphate, of course, and the cattle industry. Now this is fun. We have amassed all these accoutrements and items from the cattle industry. And we have a lot of fun with that because some of them are diabolical. I mean, for weaning the cattle to make them so the mothers won't accept them. They'll wean them. They can't nurse anymore because they put this spiny thing on their nose, so they come up and punch the mother and the udders, and she said, "Okay, we're done. No more milk for you." Well, I mean, yeah, it's pretty mean, yeah, I know. And, from the moral aspects of eating meat, I get that. From moral aspects, I would love to be a vegetarian. It's just the not eating meat part I have trouble with. So, this is a good time to talk about volunteers, docents. Now, Bob Metz is in the middle. I pick on Bob a lot because he is our dependable docent. He's always there. He missed part of a Friday months ago because of a doctor's appointment or something. But other than that, he is always there and so dependable. And on his left is Angie McCourt. She and her husband, John, who is in the picture. And did you know, in reality, he is the devil. She keeps it hidden most of the time. And I looked at that and said, oh my God, he's standing there. Like that could have been better posed if we'd done it on purpose. Anyway, John and Angie own the red brick place, and they're in the process of turning it into a coffee house gathering place. I mean, we're so excited about this. And they're docents along with Bob. So this is an interesting article the Chronicle had about us. We are unique in that we have the eldest docent, Bob Metz, 96, and the youngest docent, Sky McNamara. She was 12 when that picture was taken. Can you see the picture okay? Little 12-year-old girl, look at her looking up at Bob, this tower, you know, this giant in the history of Floral City. In fact, Paulette wrote that article. We said, you know, we had the oldest and youngest docents in Citrus County. Well, probably the United States, you know, like maybe the world, I don't know. She's now 14, so maybe someone, but I doubt it.
But she was so good that she could take people around.
Oh, she was a full-on docent. She would guide people around the museum and explain things, and she's amazing. She's a teenager and getting more of a life now, and doesn't spend as much time with us anymore. And she's got her friends that want to do things. Can't blame her. So, people in one of the local Floral City houses that was built by George Higgins. He was the master builder of Floral City. He built numerous of the historic homes, the churches, several of which are still here, still in existence. And they found in the back room or closet or attic or something, these two hand tools, these two hand saws that belonged to George Higgins, a crosscut saw and a rip saw. And she gave them to us, and oh my gosh, we have to do something. So we made a display. There's a picture by Ann Covington of one of the houses he built, and a story of George Higgins, the master builder of Floral City. We had other builders as well, but he was the famous one. He built the Zimmerman house, which is still standing right across the street there. Beautiful, beautiful home. In fact, he built it for himself, and then built another house next to it, and then sold the Zimmerman house and moved into the next house, and then eventually moved out of that. So, again, when you come in the door, we got the Native American stuff on the left, and the first thing in the middle that greets you is this display about the Duval Metz house, which is right next door. And Bob Metz grew up in that house. His grandparents bought it in 1935. They bought it in 35. And since 1936, Bob has lived part of the year in that house as a child, going to school across the street, and has a lot of stories to tell. So Bob is a historian, not by training, but just because he knows so much and has so many stories. He's always telling stories about such things. In fact, he's written 2 books, and they're right here. One is about growing up in the Duval Metz house. Wonderful stories. In fact, Paulette, my wife, used that for her book club one time. And his other one is growing up in Citrus County. So if you're interested in the history of Citrus County and such things, you've got to consider it. Those are
50.
Yeah, the Duval house is 10, the other one is 15, but there are lots of stories and lots of illustrations. Some of them he drew himself. And so I can't say enough about Bob because he is our storyteller. I mean, many of you know Bob. And so on the panels on the wall are dedicated to the Duval Metz house. His great niece was the last one to live in it. She passed away. And H.D. Bassett and Lynn Bassett are descendants by marriage of the guy that built the house. And so he ended up getting a trust fund set up for it, and we saved the house. It was falling apart. And it's been restored, or it's being restored. And so that's why this is so important for you to see the goings on of what we've done to save the house.
That's where the book writing goes.
And every cent of those books, the profit is total profit because we've already paid to have them printed. And so every cent that Bob gets from these goes directly to the restoration of the Duval. We call it the Duval Metz house because the Metz family owned it for 75 years, longer than anybody else, even though it was built by somebody else. So in the second room, we have what we call the neat old gadgets.
Yeah.
And this is where it's really fun, especially for younger people like yourselves, to look at these things and you can handle them and see how they operate and play with them. And it just shows everybody how ingenious we were in those days long by. I mean, some of the chores and things must have been so tedious. And these machines, simple machines, made life so easy. And Bob and I are constantly saying to people, I don't understand why we don't still use a lot of these things. Because they're so cool. So we have what we would call tools and machines.
Right.
Tools and mechanized tools, let's say. A machine is a mechanized thing that does work to make your chore easier. And a tool doesn't have to be mechanized. It can be a pry bar or a screwdriver, that sort of thing. So for tools, we have some displays of tools that are so much fun. Now, some of them are pretty obvious, but they're old, and I put them there just, you can see the designs work so well, we still use them. Now, just some things here that I want you to come up and play with when you can. I mean, like a self-tightening wrench instantly tightens down on the nut or bolt. And you think, oh, how do we get away from this?
Yeah.
And, adjustable pliers. Oh, it's too big. Wait a minute. There. Now it's just right.
Yeah.
Anyway. I am tempted to just keep them at home, but I brought them here because I want people to see them because, it's just kind of a game for me to play with them and I can use it. Anyway, lots and lots of stuff. And we brought a few smaller things here that you can play with them. So what about the mechanized tools, the machines? Now, this is where it's really fun with the kids. A machine is a device that directs and controls energy in the form of movement to produce the work that you need. And when we have school kids, it's fun to explain to them how many tools are there. Well, basic processes. I mean, an item is a tool. Now, it can be combinations of things. It can be ornate. It can be simple. There are 6. Did you know that?
No.
And this is what's fun to tell school kids, and if they make notes and things. Well, there are 6 basic simple machines. Wheel and axle, an example. Lever and fulcrum. But you can think of prying this boulder out of the ground with a, inclined plane.
Okay.
Pulley. Screw, and wedge. Those are the 6 simple tools. Simple. So anyway, this is just explaining when they can look at this and say, look at how ingenious these things are. I mean, imagine what a benefit it was to have a simple, like an apple peeler. Rather than doing it by hand, you had a machine. Not only was it fun and cool, but it was easy, made life simple. Yeah. So look at that. This is one of our neatest things. It's an animal treadmill. You think, why exercise your dog? Just let him go for a walk or something. No, it's not to exercise animals. It's a work unit. It's a force producing item. The animal will be put on that revolving treadmill, and once you step up on it, it's inclined, so it starts to sink because it's on rollers. So the animal starts walking, and it just keeps it moving. Now why? Well, look at the big wheel right there. You put a flat leather belt on that, and then that would drive anything that needed a rotary motion.
Okay.
Now this was developed much later. This is a gasoline-operated John Deere. We would call this a hit-and-miss engine or a one-lunger. You've probably seen these things. It just goes poof, poof. Very irregular, but once you get those two flywheels going, you can't stop it. And I contacted John Deere, wrote them a letter, I used this serial number, and said, can you tell me any history of this machine? Where was it made? Where was it sold? What, so I can figure out more about it, because my neighbor gave it to me. He had it for him. And the guy from John Deere wrote back, or a guy wrote back and said, I'm sorry, our records don't go back that far. Because, I don't know if they had a flood or a fire or something,
Wow.
but he said, all I can tell you is it's before 1920.
Wow.
So this thing is over 100 years old and it still works, but I dare not start it inside there because the smoke and even just turning the wheel once and it poof, oh God, the smell of it. So look at that. That's what they're in for. And the kids just want to roll everything and twist everything and spin everything, and it's kind of cool because they can't really hurt things. How many of you have ever seen a milk centrifuge? Well, you can go play with one there and learn what it's all about. This I found in a local junk store, and the guy had no idea what it was, and I didn't either, but I had to have it. And there was a hole down in the bottom here. I can't see where I'm pointing. Oh, right there. And when I figured out what it was, I saw something similar, but a modern one. And so I took an old metal funnel and cut the end off, and JB welded it to that hole. So to show you what it is, you would fill it with jam or jelly or custard, and then you take your donut or your eclair and you shove it onto the end of that, and you pump it up for jelly, and you got a jelly-filled donut.
Wow.
Or a custard-filled eclair. Just things. Like those are bottle cappers. There are 3 of them. 3 different designs, a simple one, a more complex one, and then the Cadillac version. And it's so amazing what people how they developed and, making a better mousetrap, making a better product that would sell better. And it's fun to look at that, and you can see what I'm talking about on the site. So Harvey and Astrid donated this piano to us many years ago. And this was sort of the beginning of our music display. We had a piano. And the rule is if you can play a piano, you're allowed to play it. But kids want to just, like, no, that doesn't work. Play us a tune, and we're happy to have you. Remember, we were one day talking about this. Bob had brought in his copy of the 1902 Sears Roebuck catalog, 1902, and we looked that up, and I'll tell you more about that, to see what it was worth and everything. And on the page next to it was a pump organ, and we thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a pump organ to go with this? And we were laughing and talking about that and saw how much the pump organ cost. And I don't know, I had walked away for a second, and Sky came and said there's a phone call, and I went to answer the phone, and the guy said, I'm over in Homosassa, and I'm cleaning out my grandfather's house, and he has this old pump organ. They were still talking about the pump organ, and I thought, yeah, they're phoning me, I didn't recognize the voice, and we talked for a while. Is this on the level? And he said he was wondering if we'd be interested. He tried to sell it, but nobody was interested. He'd give it to us. And I said, yes. And I don't know, a few weeks later, he delivered it. And it's now it matches the piano. So we have the piano and the pump organ. And that was the beginning of our music category. There's the pump organ. We'll get to that. And then Mary Lou donated the music box. And suddenly we had a piano, an organ, and a cylinder music box. And a guy was in, this is the way it happens in here. A guy came in and I showed him the music box and we oohed and awed and how cool it was and everything. And he said, you know, my neighbor gave me, I have a box full of pieces to an Edison phonograph. It's just sitting in the garage. I thought I might do something with it someday, but I'm never going to do anything. Would you like to have it? And so, yes, he brought it in. I took all the parts out and I figured it out and put it together. So we now have the phonograph with the big speaker, amplifier. So we then had a piano, an organ, a cylinder music box, and an Edison phonograph. And Delane, who lives at the end of the road, was in one day, and he was looking at that and said, you know, I have an old Victor phonograph from the 1920s, or 1915, something like that. Would you like to have it? And there it is on the right, and it still works. I found a needle, I put a needle in it, and now it works. We have records, and we pump that thing up and play music in it. It was the first phonograph that did not, it had a built-in speaker, did not have the big ear thing. So you adjust the volume by opening one or both of the little doors underneath it. It gets really loud with both of them open. And it's so fun to use it. As I mentioned earlier, when Floral City was established, within a year they were talking about digging a canal to connect the lake with the Ritchie River, 4.5 miles, and a corporation was put together, and it took 3.5 years to hand dig that canal. And it was fairly shallow, not real wide, and it was a specific size so it could handle the small steam-powered, mostly paddle wheel boats. There were 4 of them that operated from Floral City. And now we could avoid using the trails, the dusty, dirt, sandy trails and ferry crossings, by barge and ropes, and have a canal so the boats could come to Floral City at the end of Aroostook Way, at the pier that used to be there. We could load the turpentine and the citrus and the lumber right on to the boat. It could go right to Panisofsky and then load it on a train and then send it north or whatever. And for 6 to 7 years, it was great. Can you imagine how much fun that would have been to have these paddle wheel steamers operating in the lake and the canal and to the river and all the way to Inglis at the end of the river, the mouth of the river. But after about 7 years, a railroad was put in past Floral City on the high area. It's now the bike trail, by the way. And the whole town center picked up and moved over here, about a half mile. And that was the end of the steamboat era, sadly. So, of the 4 boats, the Gray Eagle, the John Inglis, the Reindeer, and the Kitty Bell, 5 boats operated from Floral City, to and fro Floral City. This is a picture of the Reindeer. We have a couple of other pictures as well. So when the Crystal River Boat Builders Association built their model of a local steam-powered paddle wheel boat, they picked the Reindeer. And we only have like 3 known photographs of the boat, and 2 of the pictures show it in the canal. So they built this model, and then they found out that we had this display, and went into talks with them, and they agreed and decided to temporarily move it to the museum while we had this display going on. And then we made it a permanent display, and it became a permanent model. And it's a quarter size. When you see how little it is, you think, oh my God, it was only 4 times bigger than that? Well, these were small boats with shallow drafts because they had to go through this little narrow, shallow canal. But flat bottom, they could hold a lot. The carrying capacity was quite good. So when it finally aged out, they just ran it aground and abandoned it, and it's rotted away. It's right near Sheriff Dean's, or Senator Sheriff Dean's property. And amazingly, one of our local families, the Bassett family, took the helm, the wheel, and it ended up in the Citrus County Historical Museum, in Inverness, and they labeled it as coming from the Kitty Bell. And it was known as that for many years, and we finally got it and put it on display, and we had a write-up about the Kitty M Bell, and when it blew up out in the lake right here, it exploded, the boiler exploded, threw oranges 300 feet in the air. I don't know how many casualties there were or anything, but it was big time. So, it made sense, that's what it was. And Bob Metz and I were sitting there, they'd been there for years, 3 years maybe, and we were sitting on the bench talking next to the model, and Bob just happened to look over. He'd never read the description before, and he was reading it. Said, "That's not from the Kitty Bell. That's from the reindeer." I said, "Well, no. I mean, the county courthouse. I mean, the county museum said it's from the Kitty Bell." And he said, "I remember when I was a little kid going over to the Bassett house, and they showed me this, and they said it was from the reindeer." I said, "Well, okay." And Marcia Beasley had called me later that morning about something. I said, "By the way, Bob says that the helm that we have there is from the reindeer." And Marcia said, "Well, I interviewed Flossie Bassett years ago. Let me see if I can find my notes from the interview." And she called me back later and said, "Oh my God, Bob's right." And I've had numerous discussions with Bob, not arguments, but numerous discussions with Bob, and Bob, he's always right. His memory is like unbelievable. So now we have the photos, we have the model, we have the helm, all of the reindeer. So it's so cool. And a young guy said he has a piece of the transom from the reindeer that he collected years ago. He was going to bring it in. I don't even know where I'm going to put it when he finally brings it to us. So Trails End Fish Camp, you all know Trails End?
Yeah.
It's now not officially a fish camp. I guess it's a trailer park. I mean a park, yeah. RV park, right. Many years ago during a hurricane or a big storm, they lost 2 of their boats that they used to rent out. They just disappeared. And then again, when the water levels dropped in the river, they found the boats buried in the muck, and they dragged them out. They were ruined, and they just dragged them out and had them sitting there near the boat ramp, the boat launch, and even found an engine, an old Mercury engine that obviously went with one of them. And later, we talked to them. They contacted us and said, "Hey, would you like one of these boats?" And so we took it. And Paulette and I had it in our barn for 10 or 15 years. And finally, I thought, "Hey, we could put it on the back porch and let people see it." And so that's where it is now. It was built by a shipwright in Brooksville, made out of cypress wood. And when you see how it was made, it's astounding. But you should look at it.
When was that built?
Probably late 40s, around 1950, something like that. We have a lot of stuff concerning the railroad that was put in 1893 and taken up in 1988 or something like that. Yeah. And then turned into Rails to Trails bike trail, one of the top 10 bike trails in the country when it was first opened. Still one of the best in the country. I don't know what the ranking is, if they even rank them anymore.
USA Today says top 10.
It's still in the top 10, yeah. That's good. Well, when they tore up the track, we started finding things everywhere, especially where the big collision was, the wreck. And we have a lot of things on display there, including a model of the actual railroad depot that was here in Floral City. We only have 2 known photographs of the depot. Those are the only 2 photographs we've ever seen of our Floral City. I mean, there must be photos somewhere in somebody's shoebox, whatever. But from those photos, we had a model made, a scale model. In fact, if you look at this photo, you can see there's a Model T parked right next to it. And I was at the Inverness flea market one day, and there was a guy selling a a battery-operated Model T, and it's just the right size for it. So it even matches the photograph.
Wow.
Who made that?
I made it. Marcia Beasley asked me to make a model. I was going to make it out of cardboard or masonite or something. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And Paulette wanted to go to a miniature show at the Armory over in Crystal River, and I went with her and I was walking around, and then I met this guy who was selling stuff for doll houses. And suddenly it dawned on me, oh, I know how I can make the train depot. And I sat with that guy for 45 minutes and walked out with a bag full of stuff. Immediately started building that thing.
Was the train depot where the gazebo is now?
Yes. That's Bob Metz, our docent. And on the panels behind him describes one of the worst, probably the second worst train disaster in the history of Florida took place right outside of Floral City. 1953. We used to have two parallel tracks, a northbound track and a southbound track for 60 miles between Vitus and Denellen. And one day, one night, a northbound train was disabled and another northbound train was coming, and the dispatcher said, I'll put you on the southbound track to get around it so you can continue on. Now, what's the first thing you would think of before you did that? Is there a southbound train coming? And there was, and he didn't know about it. And to make a long story short, they couldn't stop it, and they had a head-on collision and several deaths. But they were not passenger trains; they were both taking dry goods. Imagine if full speed, two trains, 60 miles an hour, had a head-on collision for the passengers. And fortunately, there was a family right here in Floral City that had a wind-up Super 8 camera, 1953, and they went over that morning and did some filming of it. And I took a picture with the film. We had it digitized, now it's we can show it on the TV from the film that they made. And we also got the photographs for the display from this movie film. Pretty amazing. So I told you it used to be the fire station, Floral City Volunteer Fire Station. And we have a bunch of stuff from the fire station and from local fire stations, as well as that soda acid big wheeled fire suppressor, fire extinguisher. And the first fire truck up on the top there, well, is very similar to the first fire truck. Doc Ferris went up to Kenosha, Wisconsin and bought a new fire truck, and he and a friend drove it all the way down to Floral City, and he donated it to our volunteer fire department, where there wasn't an official volunteer fire department at the time, or building anyway. And so they built the building. It's that little concrete block building next to the post office. It's just being used for storage, but that was the fire station. And they had a fire truck, and once they got a second truck, it wasn't big enough anymore because it could only fit one truck. And then they built the building that's there now. So just for fun, we have this little display there of cards. A couple of them are tickets, and a couple of them are actually cards of volunteer firemen that would carry it with them. It was their license. And the two tickets on top were for America's greatest game, Donkey Ball. Nobody? Have you ever heard of Donkey Ball? A couple of you have. Yeah, a few of you. Yeah. What was Donkey Ball? Well, it was America's greatest game, as they explained in the ticket. And this was a fundraiser. They had numerous fundraisers, fish fries and barbecues and Donkey Ball. And the other thing I wanted to show you was this particular license for Robert Hooker, but look who signed it as the fire chief at the bottom, James Metz. That was Bob's older brother. who had come back from the Second World War. He'd been in the invasion of the islands in the South Pacific, fighting the Japanese and everything. He died fairly young, sadly, but he was a big part of the fire station and the fire department. A lady gave me a box full of junk from a barn that had been torn down outside of Floral City. And in it were pieces of these 2 lightning rods. And I thought, when I had all the parts for the 2 rods, I thought, ooh, I can make a display out of this. And so this is a lightning rod and lightning display. You know, where in the United States do we have the highest number of thunderstorms and lightning strikes?
Right here.
Right here, West Central Florida. And we're about equal to Eastern Congo in Africa, averaging about 100 to 105 thunderstorms a year in this area. The only place that beats us, number 1, is Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela, south of us. They have more thunderstorms and lightning strikes than we have here. So we're tied for 2nd place. And in the foyer, you look at that, it's a couple of refrigerators. What's the deal? Well, that first closest refrigerator is not a refrigerator. It's not electric. It's an ice box. Had a big chunk of ice on the top, and you kept your food cool in the bottom. The farther one is a refrigerator, a real early refrigerator that's electric, and it keeps the food cool. But inside, you open the door, and there's this little tiny piece where you could put some ice cube trays, and that's the freezer part of it. It's really a refrigerator and a cooler, and you could actually make ice cubes. But it's fun to look at that. And we took the inside handles off because you know how kids used to get trapped.
Oh, yeah, good.
Now we keep toilet paper and paper towel rolls of paper towels and everything. When people open it,
What's it used for now?
The cooling unit is on.
yeah, that's what this.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the top, that's the machine. That's the cooling unit with the coils and everything. So in the back is an old Coca-Cola bottle dispenser, 5 cents. When was the last time you had a 5-cent Coke? Now look at, this is another ice box in that same room on the right, but this is a beautiful piece of furniture. It's been redone and stained and varnished and everything. What's that on top of it? This thing right here. That's a very heavy iron contraption. You see the Coke bottle next to it? That is a bottle mold for a humble skirt. I got that from a guy in the Inverness flea market. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited when I saw that. I had to have it. And he didn't have all the part. The only part, one part that's missing is the piece that goes on the bottom, which has the name of the town. So, and when you put a Coke bottle in it, it'll only fit right one way because the raised writing fits into the depressions, and you can seal it up, put the top on and everything. And it's so neat to show that to people. And I'm not sure how they spread the glass inside, if they rolled it around with a thing or blew it in under air pressure or whatever, but we have a bunch of Coke bottles from Inverness and Gainesville and local things on display there. But that's a neat thing to look at.
Yeah.
Well, they would have had 20 of them, I guess, or I don't know, but I got one of them. And this is our reading room, our library. We have some wonderful books. We don't loan them out, though. I tried that, and then they never got them back. So no, we're not a library, but you can come read them over there. And John, who was restoring the Zimmerman house, came over to the museum one day, and he said, I have this old desk. I'd like to give it to you. If you don't want it, you could auction it off and make some money for the museum or something. And I said, well, I'd like to see it. And we walked over and I looked and said, oh my God, we want this. And the centerpiece folds back and then it goes down. It's like a modern computer table today. It's awesome. And so we have it in the office area with typewriters. And that typewriter on the left is a child's toy. It doesn't actually work with keys. You have to change the dial and punch and it's so neat to see that from the 1930s or something.
1950s.
Oh, by the way, that adding machine, That's the only thing in the museum that does not work. If you're ever on Jeopardy and they ask that question, or give the answer and you have to ask the question, you can say, what is the only thing that doesn't work? So, in this store, these are the two windows looking out onto Orange Avenue, and we have these old medicine bottles. And we sell the medicine bottles, you know, for $3 or $5 for $3 or whatever, you know. And bottle collectors are happy to see those sort of things. And one day a guy came in and said, my grandfather was a pharmacist and he passed away, and I'm cleaning out the house, and in the attic I found this box of old medicine bottles. Would you like to have it? And I thought, oh, we could sell them and put them in the shop and everything. And so I said, yeah, and he brought them in. And I looked at it and said, oh my God, they still have medicine in them. And labels and arsenic and God only knows what was in these things, snake oils and stuff. And so I thought, wow, this is cool. And I emptied out a shelf of books and I set them there. And I thought, this is so neat, you know, to show this to people now. And you could look at them, and this has quinine in it, and this had stuff I never heard of, and God only knows what it, you know. And then somebody pointed out, you know, there's still stuff in there. It might be good to have open access to. And so I put a piece of plexiglass in front of it. And so a few months ago, a couple was in there, and the lady, I showed them that, we laughed about it, and she said, well, my grandfather was a pharmacist, and we have 2 boxes of old medicine bottles and things in our garage. Would you like to look through them? Anything you don't want, I'll keep. And that's the lower shelf. Now, some of those are a little more modern. The bottle of Mercurochrome, anybody remember that? Yes. Thiolate and other things that are just so fun to have. And I put a piece of plexiglass over that as well. So Alan Walls, who was the director of the Masonic Lodge, came in and said, you remember the iconic lighted sign, this sign that was in front of the Masonic Lodge? He said, would you like to have it? I said, yes. Hung it on the wall. And then when Regina sold the Shamrock Inn, Paula and I were there the last night. We were the last ones to leave. We often close down bars. Standing at the door with Regina. She had tears in her eyes. And I said, so what's going to happen with the beer lights? You know, the neon beer lights. And she said, well, the new owner wants them. I said, okay, fair enough. What about this, the Shamrock sign right here by the door? She said, oh, I'm keeping that. I said, okay, that's good. Because, you know, if you didn't want it, I was going to put it in the museum and everything. And so we left. 3 days later, she called me and said, you know, it's just going to sit in a box in my garage. Do you want that sign? I said, yes. And so we now have it. How many museums have you seen collections of butter churns? Look at those. They're all different types of butter churns. Have you ever seen a collection of washing machines in a museum? From simplest to more complex. Mouse traps and scales. Categories. How about, have you ever seen an egg beater collection in a museum? When we get more and more things, hey, this is a display. We found this still in the attic of Bob's house. With the last bottle of peach or plum. Peach, not fermented, not a wine, but a brandy. It's distilled. And I've tasted it. I'll let people smell it once in a while, but I'll probably get arrested if we let people drink it. It's pretty harsh. But after, 60 years or something, I guess. And we have a diorama of Floral City at the year 1900. And a lot of those buildings and things are still there. It's fun to look at that and compare it. So people are always asking me, wow, what are these things worth? And I thought, that would be fun. And I was going to do that for this presentation. And the first thing I did is I looked up the organ. And I found one just like it. And it was like $2,480 they were asking for. I thought, wow. And then I found another one just like it, and they wanted $200 for it. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to give you prices for these things. So I thought, what's the fair thing to do? Well, what did they cost when they were new? So, we got out the old Sears Roebuck catalog, 1902. Now, a lot of these things were previous, obviously, because they're listed in the book. So, here's what I did. $1 in 1900 is worth about $40 today, so keep that in mind. So let me just run through some of our collection, if you don't mind staying a little late. Nobody's waving at the door. The animal treadmill. Well, this is a bigger one, not like the one we have, much bigger. The one illustrated is for 2 big plow horses. And you can see in the bottom, it can hold 2,800 pounds. And you can run a sawmill off this. Oh, but the price, $78 for the double one and $62 for the single one. So here's our apple pear. It's exactly this model, 63 cents. There's another apple pear and core and slicer. We have that, 39 cents. Boot jack. Now I love this. It's 11 cents for one, but if you buy 12, it only costs you $1.32. Now wait a minute. 12 times 11 is $1.32. There's no saving there. What the heck? Why even say that? You know that beautiful doctor's buggy we have in there? In the first room? $55. One of our butter churns, this is the one that I found in the book. Now the one we have is probably the second or third one, $2. We have numerous chairs. These chairs, 99 cents each. We have 4 cherry pitters that Bob and I love to play with. And we brought cherries in and we pitted them, and really they work. And it's not only efficient, it's fun. But the real fancy one is 68 cents. The one that's not so fancy is only 63 cents. I show people this coffee grinder. It's 140 years old and it still works. Now, if you went out and bought a Mr. Coffee maker today, how long would it last? And it's plastic and electronic, and when it breaks, you don't fix it.
You throw it out.
Throw it away. This thing, oh my God, this is from like the Civil War time. Anyway, the really fancy one was 48 cents, and that's closer to the one we have. Cheaper one is 39 cents. Any of you ever have one of these tin cups? When I was a Cub Scout, I had this.
My mother used to have one.
Yeah, they're really cool. 10 cents.
Wow.
Made out of tin.
Plastic one.
We have a corn seed planter. Just like this, exactly the same one, 56 cents. A cattle dehorner. This is massive and really powerful. And you see the gear wheels. It's like a fulcrum almost. And that was $5.25.
Wow.
Roll top desk, $18. Now, this is a fun thing. One is 4.5 feet wide, and they make another one that's 5 feet wide. The 4.5 foot wide is $18.63, and the 5 foot wide is $18.95. So it's 30 cents more. You can save 30 cents by going for the smaller one. Anyway, just some fun thing. Oh, this is neat. We have some this is a bamboo pole and an old reel. Now this is something that Bob donated to us. The lower one does not have the guide, the revolving back and forth guide, you had to use your thumb to control when you're winding it in, you'd use your thumb to wind it up. I mean, that was the first version of it. But it's really complex, which is shown because it costs, if you include 80 yards of line, it was $2.75. If you had 100 yards of line, it's $3.
Wow.
Now don't put your fingers in there while I'm doing a demonstration. A meat grinder, the exact one, by the way. And then this is we would call this a corn mill or a food processor, $1.07. And this is a big, heavy-duty, geared food press for pressing meat into sausages or pressing fruit into juice or whatever. $5.15. We had a gun collection. People had given us a few guns. We had them in the back room, junky old beat-up guns. And then Pam Atkinson came in and said, "Oh, I have this old rifle you might be interested in." And I looked at it. It was a Spencer Civil War era rifle that her friend living in Tallahassee, her ancestor had gotten it during the war and brought it home, a Confederate, and taken it off a Union soldier or stole it or whatever. And some of them made their way into Confederate hands. It was the gun that won the war for the Union, pretty much. And there it is. You can put around it. It was one of the first rifles to shoot a cartridge. The others were muzzle loading muskets, single shot, muzzle loading. And so this thing is very valuable today. And what did it cost when it was new? $3.65, and that included 25 cartridges. Can you imagine?
Yeah, but how much money did they make in a week?
Well, that's the thing, but there were a lot of them left over after the war. Most people have no idea what that is, but I put a 12-gauge shotgun shell next to it. It's actually a crimper for shotgun shells. These are random things that we've collected that are fun to look at and try to figure out. This is a thick leather pad that a curved blade presses against. It's a hog tamer. You would use it to actually cut the ridge of the snout so that it would keep the hog from turning up your garden. It might sound cruel, but that's that hard ridge that they plow the ground with, and that would, cast iron, 30 cents, washboards. We have glass, tin, and wood washboards over there. And look at this fancy washing machine, really top of the line with gears, agitators, and it could be driven by a belt. What do you think that would have cost? How about $2.75? And it's a work of art. When you look at this thing, this is incredible. Yeah, wash tubs and ringers, and my grandmother had one of these when I was a kid. I used to play with it, and she put my grandfather's pocket watch through the ringer. Oh. She was not happy. What was it? $5.94. Mouse traps. We have all of those. 3 cents, 6 cents, 9 cents. So, here we go. The piano. This beautiful big upright piano. $98. That was expensive.
Yes.
What about that organ, the pump organ? $22. The one we have there is from the 1880s, so it's probably only $19. A pickaxe from Camp Phosphate Mine just outside of Floral City. 43 cents for the one we have, plus a handle. I should have gotten the handle because this handle's right away. Any of you have one of these folding sewing machines?
The other one?
You used to, I'm sure. What did it say? $10, 45 cents. Now this is one of the tools I brought that I want to share. It's a cobbler's tool. It's a shoe stretcher. So people had leather shoes. So if you would steam the leather a little bit, put this in, you could press out a part where your bunion is or corn or something and stretch the leather a little bit, and then it would fit better.
What's that word? Japanned iron?
What's that?
Made of japanned iron?
Oh, yeah, I don't know what that means. I meant to look that up. Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that on one of the other ones too, it said Japan.
Japan. I mean, it must have been a process that they use in Japan. That,
We'll go home and look it up.
yeah. But see what it costs? 55 cents. Stereoscope. I brought one for you to look at if you're up to it. 24 cents. Now the colored Vista views, you know, the stereoscopic views were more expensive than the machine. Telegraph machine, $1.45. These are just random things that we have in the museum. Oh, sorry. It's 42 cents, by the way. Can't read it. You know, these are things, some of you probably still have them.
Yeah.
But they were real precision-made tools at the time, and $1.39 for the fancy ones, 55 cents for the smaller ones. And here's a 3-geared knife sharpener. And by having 3 gears, it means that the stone turns the same direction as your handle. Now, I've shown that to kids, and some kids get it. They go, oh, yeah, because that makes this wheel turn this way, and this makes this wheel turn this way, and so it turns the same direction as your handle. Usually they only have 2 gear wheels, and so the stone turns the opposite way of your handle. That's a little disconcerting. 55 cents. Typewriters. Is that 22 cents? Okay, I have this tool up here. What is it? And when you twist the top, it has 2 prongs that rub against the inside. So you scoop the ice cream out and you twist that and it separates. It's the same principle as a modern day big one. And then our pot-bellied stove that we have in there. Now the fancy one was $8.45 for cast iron pot-bellied stove. So I'm about done now. The Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. Well, it's like Floral City Heritage Museum, only bigger. We have art. That's Anita Roy's iconic painting of the Tunnel of Oaks. That's the original. We have it there on display. And Polly Bernard. These are original paintings of Polly Bernard that we have on display. And Marcia has used these images on t-shirts. So you can get your own copy of it. And most importantly, we have one of the greatest artists that ever come out of Floral City. In fact, she's sitting right here in Covington. She did the mural on the hardware store. Before you give her too much applause, there's one thing I have to have a word with you. This book is long out of print.
I found one. I found one 2 months ago online.
Oh, wow. Good for you. We have one, we used to sell them, and we sold them all out really quickly, and we have one that you can see, display only, not for sale. I'm worried someone's going to steal it. I have my copy at home, but we would sure like to get some more copies printed up somehow. It is such a seller.
Yes.
And Anne lives in South Africa, but she also has been an American citizen for many years, and she's maybe going to move back. So one of your first things you got to do is get more copies printed. In fact, we even have some of her original pieces for sale still in the museum. The Zimmerman House, the Methodist Church. And there's the old commercial hotel, you know, the Yancey House right across the street. And museum stores. This is the Museum of Natural History in New York City. It's just like the Floral City Heritage Museum store, only bigger. Marcia Beasley is in charge of the store, and she is amazing in the things she finds to collect, to sell in the store. I mean, old-time toys and such. And there's a lot more than just t-shirts, but the t-shirts are really nice. just looking around the store, you can see all the stuff, and it's really fun. So I'm going to end with that. And that's the secrets and stories.